Hey everyone, excited for another deep dive today. We're cracking open Exodus 4. Um, it's where we see Moses kind of freaking out a little bit about this whole leading the Israelites out of Egypt thing.
Yeah, this is where the rubber meets the road for Moses.
Seriously, it's like, okay, God, you picked me. Now what?
Well, and imagine having to confront Pharaoh. I mean, talk about an intimidating task.
Seriously, you think you have a tough job? Try telling the most powerful dude in the world to let all his slaves go. Oh, and by the way, Moses has a speech impediment, so there's that too.
I think a lot of us can relate to that feeling of being unqualified or maybe intimidated by a challenge.
For sure. But here's what's cool about this story. God totally gets it. He doesn't just tell Moses to buck up.
Right. Instead, he gives him some pretty amazing proof.
Oh yeah, talk about special effects. The staff turning into a snake, the leper's hand healed instantly, and water turning into blood.
You have to imagine seeing that. No CGI back then.
I'd probably faint. Seriously though, why these specific signs?
Well, think about the audience. This was a world where magic and miracles were part of the culture.
So it was a way of speaking their language.
Exactly. But also, and this is key for Moses, it was about overcoming self-doubt.
Like God was saying, look, I got you. Here's the power you need to do this thing.
Exactly, a divine portfolio.
Totally. But even with all that, Moses is still hesitant. He's like, God, I'm not so good with words.
Classic imposter syndrome, right?
Big time.
Yeah.
And how many of us feel that way sometimes? Like we're not good enough, even when we have the skills.
Oh, I know that feeling.
But God's response is amazing. He basically says, who gave you the ability to speak in the first place?
It's like a reminder that we all have these gifts, these talents, even if we don't always see them.
It's so true. And then God gives Moses another boost. He brings in Aaron, Moses' brother, who's supposed to be a great speaker.
The original wingman. It's like God saying, look, I know this is hard, so here's some help.
Exactly. And we all need those Aarons in our lives, right?
Yeah.
Those people who support us and help us shine.
Absolutely. Think about mentors, colleagues, friends, family, anyone who encourages you and helps you grow.
Like our own personal hype squad.
Haha, exactly. And think about it. Almost every success story involves a team, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
No one does it alone.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we've got Moses kind of, sort of ready to go. He's got the proof, the partner, and a purpose. But that trip back to Egypt, yikes.
Yeah, not exactly a smooth ride. Remember that weird encounter at the end?
Oh, yeah. Super creepy. It's like a warning sign, right?
Okay.
Like, hey, Moses, this is serious business.
For sure. I mean, he could have been killed. And it wasn't just about him. His family was at risk, too.
It makes you think, even when you're doing the right thing, it's not always going to be easy.
Absolutely. There are always going to be obstacles and setbacks. You know those times when you think, what am I even doing?
Yeah, I've been there. So how do you push through that? How do you build that kind of resilience?
I think it starts with remembering your why. Why are you doing this? What's the bigger goal?
Like having that North Star to guide you?
Exactly. And don't forget about your support system. Just like Moses had Aaron, we all need those people who've got our backs.
People who will cheer you on, but also give you a reality check when you need it.
Haha, for sure. Sometimes you need someone to say, hey, you're being a little crazy. But it all comes back to that community, that feeling that you're not alone.
You know, it's amazing how relevant this story still is. Like, who hasn't felt that self-doubt creep in when they're facing a big challenge?
Totally. It's like a universal experience.
That imposter syndrome monster.
Right. But the cool thing is, Moses' story shows us that we don't have to let those feelings win.
We can actually choose to lean into our strengths and believe that we can do it.
And honestly, sometimes those doubts are a good sign. It means you're pushing yourself, growing.
Getting out of your comfort zone.
Exactly. And
Well,
Moses is like the ultimate example of that. He didn't just magically become a leader.
he had to go through all that struggle.
The resistance, the setbacks he had, those moments where he probably wanted to quit.
But he stuck with it.
And that's what we can learn from him. We can all be like Moses in our own way. We all have that potential.
It's true. Okay, so back to the story. It's really interesting how God doesn't just give Moses a pep talk. He meets him right where he's at.
Yeah, there's that realness to it, right? Like God acknowledges Moses' fears and insecurities, but then says, okay, now let's work with that.
He gives him the tools, the support, the guidance.
And I think that's a huge takeaway for us. We don't have to be perfect or have everything figured out.
We can rely on our faith, our community, and our own inner strength.
And yeah, there will be times when we mess up or those doubts creep back in.
But that's where stories like Moses's come in.
They remind us that even ordinary people can do amazing things.
And sometimes it just takes that leap of faith. You know, thinking about those signs God gave Moses, the staff, the hand, the water, It's like God knew exactly what Moses needed.
Right. Like even Moses needed that extra push.
Yeah. Like, see? I'm not messing around here. It's interesting, though, right? We
Yeah.
all kind of want that proof that something tangible,
It's human nature, I think. We want to see it to believe it.
for sure. But the real change comes from the inside, right? From believing in yourself.
Absolutely. It's not about what others say or do. It's about knowing your own worth, your own strength.
Okay, so how do we do that? How do we
Hmm.
cultivate that kind of inner strength, especially when things get tough?
I think it starts with recognizing what makes you, you. What are your gifts? What are you good at?
Like figuring out your own superpower?
Yeah, and then it's about using those gifts to do something meaningful, to make a difference.
So it's not just about what you're good at, it's about how you use it.
Right, and here's the thing. Moses didn't become Moses overnight. He struggled, he made mistakes.
He had those moments where he's like, what have I gotten myself into?
Exactly, but he kept going. He learned from those experiences, and that's what made him a great leader.
It's like those tough times are actually what help us grow.
Totally. It's when you're pushed outside your comfort zone that you really discover what you're capable of.
Okay, so as we wrap up our deep dive into Exodus 4, here's the challenge. What's your Moses moment? What's that thing in your life that's calling you to step up, to do something amazing?
Maybe it's something you've always dreamed of, or maybe it's something small but important to you.
Whatever it is, remember what we talked about today. Believe in yourself, find your people, and don't be afraid to go for it.
You've got this.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.